The night they locked me outside in the middle of the snowstorm, I finally understood that the people I married into never saw me as part of their family. I stood on the porch with freezing wind cutting through my clothes while Declan, Ruthann, Brietta, and even Sawyer laughed from behind the warm glass window. Their voices echoed through the storm, sharp and cruel. Declan shouted, "Freeze to death, worthless idiot," and the others laughed harder, like hurting me was entertainment. That moment didn't just sting, it opened my eyes. They didn't just dislike me. They wanted me gone, erased, forgotten. And the worst part was that I had spent years shrinking myself to make them comfortable. Please stay with me as I tell you my story, and please do not forget to support our channel by subscribing, liking, and sharing with your loved ones. I remember standing there, staring at them, the cold burning into my skin. For months, the Crayfields had chipped away at me with small insults, whispered comments, or rude smirks at dinner. Ruthann never missed a chance to call me too sensitive. Brietta acted like I was beneath her. Sawyer played along with every joke, even when he looked uncomfortable. And Declan, the man I married, let it all happen, sometimes joining them, sometimes pretending he didn't hear it. But that night changed something inside me. I didn't cry or beg them to open the door. I didn't yell back. I just stood quietly, feeling everything inside me turn still. It was like the cold froze the last piece of hope I had held for them. When I finally walked away, I didn't look back at the house, not even once. My hands were numb, my lips trembling, but my mind was strangely clear. I had been trying to earn love from people who were never going to give it. It took a snowstorm and their laughter to make me accept the truth. I walked down the long driveway with the snow falling harder around me. I didn't have a plan, just a need to get away from those voices, from that house, from the person I had allowed myself to become. For the first time in years, I acted without waiting for someone else's permission. The quiet crunch of snow under my feet felt like a reminder that I could move forward, even if it hurt. I didn't call a friend or send a message to anyone. I didn't want anyone pulling me back or asking questions I wasn't ready to answer. I disappeared into the night exactly the way they had wanted, only not in the way they expected. They wanted me gone so they could keep hurting me without consequences. But I walked away to save myself. That night wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of everything I would discover, everything I would rebuild, and everything they would eventually regret. I didn't stop moving until the house was far behind me. My legs carried me without thinking, and the only place that came to mind was my late aunt's cabin by the lake. That cabin had always felt like a quiet corner of the world, and I needed that silence more than anything. When I reached it, I let myself inside and locked the door. The warm air from the old heater wrapped around me, and for the first time since that terrible night, I felt my body slowly loosening. I made a hot drink, wrapped myself in a blanket, and just sat without forcing myself to think. On the first day, I didn't touch my phone. I wasn't ready to hear from the people who pushed me to the edge. I slept, cried, and tried to warm up both my body and my mind. The calm around the lake helped me breathe normally again. I kept wondering how I had stayed in that house for so long, letting their cold words become a part of my everyday life. On the second day, I finally turned on my phone. There were countless messages waiting for me. The first few were annoyed, Ruthann demanding to know where I was, Brietta accusing me of being childish. Then the tone changed. Declan's voice filled my voicemail, sounding confused and desperate. He kept talking non-stop, jumping from excuses to apologies, begging me to come home. I listened to only one message before I muted everything. I didn't want to let their voices back into my head. I sat by the window, looking at the still, frozen water. For the first time in years, I felt distance from them, and that distance gave me clarity. Their sudden worry wasn't love, it was fear of losing control. They wanted me back because they needed someone to blame, someone to push around. Without me, they didn't know where to aim their anger. By the third day, the shock of everything faded, and something stronger settled inside me. I replayed every small insult, every time I had been pushed aside or mocked. I remembered Ruthann's constant criticism, Brietta's smug comments, Sawyer pretending it was all harmless fun, and Declan letting it all happen as if I deserved it. Instead of breaking me, those memories made me more certain of what I needed to do. I stood in the middle of that small cabin and realized I wasn't the same woman who had walked away that night. I wasn't weak, and I wasn't going to ever let them decide my worth again. I didn't need to argue with them or defend myself. I just needed to take control quietly and move forward without letting them pull me back. I made a choice right there. My silence would no longer be a sign of fear. It would be the beginning of my strength. From that moment on, I promised myself that I would never be their target again. I would rebuild my life on my terms, and they wouldn't see it coming. I woke up on the fourth morning in the cabin feeling a little steadier, and I finally had the energy to look through the box of papers I had grabbed before leaving the house. I expected old bills or random documents, nothing important. But as soon as I opened the first folder, my stomach tightened. There were loan statements with my name on them. Loans I had never signed for, never even heard about. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake. Maybe it was an old account I forgot about or something linked to a shared bill. But the more I looked, the clearer it became. These were recent, active, and completely unknown to me. Then I found something that made my hands go cold. Copies of agreements with my signature, except I knew I hadn't signed them. My handwriting looked off, rushed, almost like someone had copied it from another document. I checked the dates, and every single one lined up with days when Ruth Ann had insisted I leave certain files for her to organize or help with. That was when the truth hit me. She had signed my name. She had pretended to be me. And Declan had gone along with it, using my identity like it was a tool for his own plans. I felt a wave of disbelief. It was one thing to be insulted or mistreated, but this was different. This wasn't emotional cruelty. This was theft. They didn't just hurt my feelings. They tied me to debts that weren't mine and made me legally responsible for their choices. I kept flipping through pages, hoping to find something that proved I had agreed to this. But all I found were more forged signatures, more hidden accounts, and more proof that this wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. For a few minutes, I just sat there, staring at the mess they had created in my name. Anger didn't explode all at once. It arrived slowly, settling like a steady flame in my chest. I had walked away because of what they did the night of the storm, but now I saw how deep their betrayal went. They didn't just want control over me emotionally. They wanted control over my future, my finances, and my independence. I knew I needed help, and I knew exactly who to call. My aunt had always trusted a lawyer named Grant Ellingford. She used to say, "If you ever get in trouble, call Grant first." I finally understood why she said it. I found his number in her old address book and called him. When he answered, I explained the situation carefully, reading out the loan details, the forged signatures, and the documents that didn't belong to me. He told me to scan everything and send it over right away. His tone changed when he heard the full story, not surprised but serious focused. He said there were clear signs of fraud and identity misuse. For the first time since I left, I didn't feel lost. I had direction. I had evidence. And I had someone who knew how to fight this properly. That moment became the start of something new, not fear, not confusion, but a quiet determination. I wasn't just getting away from them anymore. I was taking back everything they had tried to steal from me. When Grant picked up my call, I felt a mix of relief and fear. I didn't know how he would react after hearing everything, but he gave me the space to explain each detail calmly. I told him about the loans, the forged signatures, and the accounts opened using my name. I read out amounts, dates, and anything else I could find. He didn't interrupt or rush me. When I finally stopped talking, he let out a slow breath and said I had a strong fraud case. Hearing that from someone who understood the law made something inside me unclench. Grant asked me where I was staying. I told him I was at my aunt's cabin. He said it was good I left the Crayfields' house and warned me not to return under any circumstances. According to him, people who commit financial fraud often become unpredictable when they realize they've lost control. He advised me to avoid any direct contact. No calls, no messages, nothing. He told me to stay where I was, stay quiet, and let them wonder where I went. I agreed immediately. I had no desire to go back to that place or face any of them. Next, Grant helped me understand how to protect my aunt's property. He reminded me that since the cabin was left to me, it was legally mine. But if the Crayfields found out I was staying there, they might try something. Maybe attempt to claim I abandoned the house I shared with Declan or twist the situation to their advantage. Grant walked me through steps to secure the deed, update certain records, and make sure no one could legally interfere with the cabin. He emailed documents I needed to sign electronically. Before signing anything, he explained each form in simple terms so I understood what I was agreeing to. Some papers were for reporting identity misuse. Others were for starting fraud proceedings. There were also documents to freeze certain accounts so no more activity could happen under my name. Each signature felt like I was taking back a piece of myself. While I filled everything out, I felt strangely steady. For so long, I had let myself believe I had no real choices. I thought keeping the peace was the only way to survive in that family. But now I was doing something for me, something that protected my future. It felt unfamiliar but good, like a part of me that had been buried was finally waking up. Grant told me he would handle the filings immediately. He said the Crayfields would receive notices soon, and that their reactions would likely shift from confusion to fear. I didn't respond to that part. I didn't care what they felt anymore. This wasn't about making them panic. It was about pulling myself out of the damage they created. When the call ended, I put my phone down and looked around the cabin. The same place that once held childhood memories was now becoming the starting point of my freedom. For the first time in years, I felt control returning to me, not through anger, but through calm, steady action. I wasn't running anymore. I was preparing. I was sitting at the small cabin table, sorting through more papers, when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I answered cautiously. The voice on the other end introduced himself as someone from Declan's workplace. He said they couldn't reach Declan and were calling me because I was listed as his emergency contact. I didn't say much, only that I was not in touch with him. Before hanging up, he mentioned they had discovered issues with accounts Declan handled. Hearing that confirmed something for me. His choices were finally catching up to him. After that call, the messages started coming in even faster. At first, it was Brietta. Her tone was coated with guilt, like she was trying to sound worried without admitting she'd ever done anything wrong. She talked about how the family was falling apart, and said she hoped I was okay. I didn't reply. I listened once, saved it, and moved on. I wasn't going to let her rewrite the past or pretend she wasn't part of everything that happened. Then came Ruth Ann. Her messages were filled with blame, frustration, and her usual superiority. She accused me of being dramatic, selfish, and ungrateful. She said I was ruining her family's life and called me heartless for disappearing. Every word she sent only reminded me of the way she used to speak to me at the house. Sharp, dismissive, always twisting the story to make herself look like the victim. I didn't let her noise shake me. I simply saved her messages the same way I saved all the others. Later that night, Sawyer reached out. His message was different. It wasn't wrapped in excuses or hidden behind anger. He said he was sorry, truly sorry, and admitted he had stood by when he shouldn't have. He wrote that the night of the snowstorm crossed a line he never thought the family would reach, and he regretted not stopping it. I didn't answer him either, but his words stayed with me. Not because they changed anything, but because it was the first time someone in that family acknowledged the truth. While their messages kept coming in, I noticed something else happening inside me. Instead of feeling overwhelmed or scared, I felt steady. Their panic didn't pull me back into the past. It pushed me further toward my own future. Every voicemail, every accusation, every apology showed me exactly who they were without the mask. They were scrambling, confused, and losing the control they once held so tightly. I kept everything they sent, organizing it the same way Grant advised me to. Proof mattered now. Not for revenge in the loud sense, but for protecting myself legally and emotionally. Sitting in the quiet cabin, I realized how different my life already felt. I wasn't hiding, I was choosing space. I wasn't waiting for them to change, I was moving forward. Their world was shaking, but mine was finally becoming clear. Their chaos no longer belonged to me, and watching that distance grow only made me feel stronger. Grant worked quickly, and within a few days he told me everything was ready to be sent. I didn't have to contact the Crayfields myself. He handled every step. That alone felt like a huge weight lifted off my chest. I didn't want to hear their voices or explain anything to them. I didn't know them that. Grant gathered the documents, organized the evidence, and sent the fraud filings, identity misuse reports, and all financial charges straight to their doorstep. Once the papers were delivered, things began to move fast. Declan was officially listed as the main person responsible for the financial mess. His name was on almost every form, every loan, every suspicious account. Seeing that written clearly made something inside me loosen. It wasn't just me saying he had done it. The law recognized it too. Ruth Ann wasn't ignored either. Grant made sure her role was documented. Her forged signatures were included as part of the case. The way she signed my name, pretending to help, was no longer hidden. Those documents now followed her with legal weight, not just my memory of them. Brietta and Sawyer were not charged, but they were listed as material witnesses. Their messages, the recordings, and the way they stood by during the snowstorm became evidence of what the home environment was really like. It showed the pattern, the behavior, and the truth behind the family image they tried so hard to present. I didn't call them to warn them. I didn't tell them anything myself. I stayed in the cabin, drinking tea, watching the lake, and letting everything unfold without my involvement. Grant kept me updated, but I didn't reach out to the Crayfields directly. Silence wasn't a tactic, it was just peace. I had finally stepped out of their constant noise. From what Grant explained, the household reacted exactly how he expected. Their calm facade shattered as soon as the documents arrived. They tried calling him first, demanding explanations, acting surprised, pretending confusion. But the paperwork didn't leave room for excuses. Everything was clear, dated, signed, and backed by evidence. As the reality settled in, their responses changed. The messages they sent me earlier now worked against them, and they knew it. Declan apparently panicked the most. According to Grant, he called his office, tried to explain the situation, and only made things worse for himself. His workplace was already suspicious because of the financial inconsistencies. The filings delivered to their home just confirmed that something serious was going on. Ruth then didn't handle it quietly either. She blamed everyone except herself. She called the situation unfair, tried to paint me as spiteful, and acted like the forged signatures were harmless favors. But none of that mattered now. The law didn't care about her excuses. As for Brietta and Sawyer, they kept their distance. They didn't try to reach out again after receiving the notices. Maybe they understood things had gone too far. Maybe they realized their messages were part of the proof. Back at the cabin, I didn't feel triumphant or angry. I felt steady. Everything happening was simply the result of their own choices. I didn't push anything. I didn't create false stories. I just allowed the truth to come to light. Their world was shaking, and I didn't need to lift a finger. Declan's life begins to fall apart faster than he ever expected. When the suspension notice from his job arrives, he tries to act surprised, but everyone in his house knows exactly why it happened. He walks around in silence for a few days, pretending things will settle, but nothing gets better. Ruthan turns cold almost instantly, snapping at him for every small thing. She keeps saying that all of this is his doing, that if he had handled his wife better, none of this would have happened. Brietta tries to defend him at first, but even she can't ignore the truth. She complains that Mariel is making everything bigger than it is. Yet she doesn't deny what happened. She only wants the situation to fade away so she can go back to pretending everything is normal. Sawyer pulls away from all of them. He stops answering their group chats, avoids the living room, and spends most of his time locked in his room. He doesn't want to be involved in the chaos that follows Declan everywhere now. Declan starts messaging Mariel constantly. At first, he tries to talk like nothing serious happened. He asks how she is, asks if she's eating well, and says he wants to explain things. When she doesn't respond, he switches to long paragraphs trying to justify himself. He calls the snowstorm incident a misunderstanding, something that looked worse than it was. He insists he didn't mean for things to get so harsh, and that the comments made that night were said in the heat of the moment. When that brings no reply, the tone of his messages changes again. He begins defending himself, claiming she is trying to destroy his life. He says the reports filed against him are too much and that he's being treated like a criminal. He claims he never intended to harm her, that he only wanted space, and that the situation got blown out of control. Hours later, the desperation creeps in. He starts apologizing for everything, even for things he once denied. He says he didn't realize how much damage he caused until now. He begs her to give him a chance to make things right. He says he can't sleep and can't think straight. Every new message gets longer, more frantic, more uneven. But Mariel stays silent. She reads the messages, but she doesn't feel the pull to reply. Every time she scrolls through his words, she remembers the freezing wind cutting against her skin, her fingers numb, her breath shaking in the cold. She remembers the window fogged from the heat inside the house while she stood outside shivering. She remembers the smirks, the whispered jokes, the way no one opened the door. She remembers Declan laughing with the others, pretending she wasn't begging to be let in. Those memories are stronger than his excuses. She refuses to get pulled into his cycle again. She has no interest in arguing, explaining, or comforting anyone who once left her outside to suffer because they thought it was funny. So she keeps her phone on silent. She lets the messages pile up. She lets him talk into the void while she moves forward with her own life, far away from the people who thought cruelty was a joke. And she never replies. Mariel's new beginning unfolds slowly, but each day feels lighter than the one before. Her aunt's lakeside home becomes the calm she never knew she needed. The house sits near the water, where mornings begin with soft waves brushing the shore and evenings settle quietly without noise or tension. For the first time in years, Mariel wakes up without fear of being judged or blamed. No one watches her every move. No one waits for her to fail. She finds small jobs in the nearby artisan market, a place filled with handmade crafts, warm lights, and friendly faces. The work isn't stressful. She greets customers, helps arrange displays, and sometimes assists local artists with their booths. It's not a high position, but it brings her peace and gives her space to breathe. People here treat her with respect, and that alone feels like a fresh start. Her aunt checks on her gently, never pushing for details. She simply offers meals, quiet company, and a home where Mariel feels safe. That steady kindness helps Mariel settle into her new routine. She takes long walks near the lake, cooks simple dinners, and learns to enjoy moments she used to ignore because of constant tension at the Crayfield house. Grant keeps her updated with straightforward messages. He doesn't overwhelm her, just sends clear progress reports about the case. Declan's situation is advancing faster than expected. Investigators move quickly once they review the evidence. Mariel doesn't celebrate, but she feels a weight lift knowing the truth is being recognized. She no longer has to prove her side of the story. The facts speak loudly enough. Ruth Ann's situation becomes complicated as well. Many documents point toward her involvement, and she's forced to answer for actions she always brushed aside. She had spent years trying to appear flawless, but now she has to deal with consequences she never imagined. Mariel hears from Grant that penalties are stacking up, and the stress inside the Crayfield home is rising by the day. Word spreads through their community sooner than the family expected. Their polished image fades quickly, replaced by shocked whispers and uneasy distance from neighbors. The same people who once admired the Crayfields quietly pull away. Mariel doesn't enjoy their downfall, but she no longer carries the guilt they used to place on her shoulders. The truth simply corrected itself. She focuses on her own life instead. She learns how to rest without fear, how to spend time without constant worry, and how to feel comfortable in her own skin again. She starts journaling, something she had stopped doing because criticism in her old house made her question everything. Now she writes freely, expressing thoughts she once hid. Each evening, she sits on the porch and watches the sun drop behind the water. The peaceful glow reminds her of everything she regained: freedom, dignity, and a life without cruelty. For the first time since her wedding, she can breathe without heaviness in her chest. She feels steady, grounded, and quietly hopeful about what comes next. Mariel doesn't look back. Not out of bitterness, but because she finally has something better ahead of her. The courtroom feels cold when I walk in, but not the kind of cold I felt that night in the snow. This time, it's a calm chill, the kind that helps me stay steady. I sit beside Grant, and he gives me a reassuring nod before the hearing begins. I don't feel nervous. I'm ready to face the truth of what happened, not the lies I lived with. The Crayfields sit on the other side, looking very different from the polished family they always pretended to be. Declan slumps forward, avoiding the judge's eyes. Ruth Ann's face is tight with frustration. Brietta looks unsure of herself for once, and Sawyer keeps shifting in his seat, as if he wants to disappear. The room feels heavy with tension, but it has nothing to do with me. Their own actions brought them here. When the judge calls the session to order, the quiet becomes sharper. Grant stands and begins presenting the evidence. His voice stays calm and steady. He lays out every document clearly, each forged signature placed where my name should never have been. He shows the transfers and the accounts tied to loans I never applied for. The financial trail forms a straight line back to Declan. Every file backs up the truth I carried for weeks. The recordings come next. The court listens to the messages they left during their downward spiral. Some are desperate, some angry, some filled with guilt. The judge listens without expression. The last part is the incident from the night they locked me out. Grant doesn't exaggerate anything. He simply states what happened. It's enough. The judge only has to hear it once to understand. Declan tries to catch my eyes throughout the hearing, waiting for some reaction, maybe hoping I'll soften. But I don't look at him. I don't owe him anything. Not explanation, not comfort, not forgiveness. Every time he shifts toward me, I feel the same sense of distance. Whatever we had ended long before I walked into that courtroom. When it's Ruth Ann's turn to speak, she tries to blame the stress of family responsibilities. But the judge doesn't entertain the excuse. The penalties for forgery are read out calmly. Brietta and Sawyer are called up next. They answer questions quietly, their earlier bravado gone. They repeat the truth this time, not the stories they once supported to protect their image. The final decision comes quickly. Declan is ordered to repay what he took and attend counseling. Ruth Ann faces legal sanctions for what she forged. The rest of them must cooperate fully with the investigation. No one argues when the ruling is read. Their reactions say enough. They knew this was coming. When the judge dismisses the room, I stand up with steady legs. Walking toward the exit feels like stepping out of a heavy shadow. I don't look back. I don't need their faces to confirm anything. I know what I came here to do. Outside the courthouse, the air feels open and clean. I breathe it in, feeling lighter than I have in years. For the first time, I walk forward carrying only myself. Not their weight, not their guilt, not their cruelty. I walk out stronger than I walked in. A year passed quietly, and my life became something I never thought I'd have. Peaceful and steady. The cabin that once felt like a hiding place is now my real home. I take care of it with my own hands, fixing small things, repainting walls, and planting flowers outside. The garden grows beautifully near the lake, full of color and calmness. Some mornings, I sit on the porch with coffee and watch the water move. It reminds me how far I've come. I no longer wait for anyone to call or explain. The silence that once scared me now feels comforting. It's the sound of my freedom, not my loneliness. I built a life that belongs only to me, without control, lies, or cruelty. The memories of that night in the snow have faded into something distant. Like a bad dream I finally woke up from. The Crayfields went their own way. The word still finds me through others. Declan lost his position for good. Ruth Ann lives quietly now, no longer the proud woman who looked down on everyone. Brietta moved to another town, trying to escape the gossip. Sawyer kept his distance, maybe out of guilt or shame. They all live under the weight of their choices. Sometimes letters arrive, written in Declan's handwriting. Grant screens my mail for legal reasons, but I never open those letters. Whatever he wants to say no longer matters. My answer was already given the day I walked away and never looked back. His words can't change anything. I don't hate him, I simply feel nothing. That emptiness is my peace. My days are simple now. I sell crafts at the market, cook my meals, and take evening walks near the lake. The still water often reflects the stars clearly, and I think about how small moments like these used to feel impossible. There's no noise, no shouting, no coldness, just quiet air and a sense of safety. The Crayfields remain trapped in the chaos they created. Their family broke apart just as they tried to break me. But I didn't shatter. I rebuilt. My silence became my loudest answer, stronger than any words could be. Their world froze the night they left me outside. Mine began to thaw the moment I walked away. Do you think I was right to walk away, or should I have stayed and given them another chance? Tell me in the comments. I really want to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoy stories like mine, please subscribe and hit the notification bell.